Did you know that, according to a 2022 Harvard study, over 70% of people report feeling they are not living their true life mission? That means a majority of us are walking on autopilot, moving through routines, obligations, and endless distractions, but rarely listening to the deeper call of the soul. I know this feeling intimately. There was a time in my life when everything looked fine on the outside, but inside I felt a silent ache, as if something essential was missing. And it wasn't until I began listening to that inner voice that my life started to shift. Today, I want to share with you two recent scientific discoveries about spiritual awakening. Discoveries that show us how intuition and purpose are not just mystical ideas, but realities studied by top universities. More importantly, I'll show you how I applied them in my daily life, in moments as ordinary as choosing how to spend my mornings, and how you can apply them too. So here's my invitation. Stay with me until the end, because I'll give you a simple 7-day challenge, something you could try immediately. It may just help you hear your own soul's whisper more clearly than ever before. Have you ever felt that quiet emptiness, even when everything on the surface seemed perfectly fine? A steady job, friends who care about you, a home that provides comfort. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a small voice keeps whispering, "This is not it." That feeling is more common than most people admit. It's the subtle gap between the life we live outwardly and the one our inner self longs for. And the truth is, ignoring that gap doesn't make it disappear. It usually makes it grow louder over time. I remember a season of my life when I was caught in this exact paradox. From the outside, I was doing well. I had a respectable position, I was financially stable, and I had a social circle. But at night, when everything grew quiet, a heavy question always surfaced. Is this really what I'm here for? At first, I tried to silence it. I filled my schedule with distractions, convinced myself I should just be grateful, and told myself this unease was just stress. But the more I ignored it, the more it pressed against me. The stress turned into sleepless nights. The sleepless nights became fatigue during the day. And eventually, I realized this wasn't a lack of discipline or a mood swing. It was my inner self sending signals I had been too busy or maybe too afraid to listen to. Science has something powerful to say about this experience. A 2021 study from MIT revealed that people who consistently ignore their inner voice, their own sense of alignment, show levels of chronic stress 40% higher than those who regularly pause to reflect and respond to it. 40%. That number is not small. It means that silencing your inner self isn't neutral. It has measurable biological consequences. Elevated cortisol levels, higher risk of anxiety, and increased fatigue are all tied to the simple act of disconnecting from what you truly feel. When I first read this research, it hit me like a mirror. I could see myself in those statistics. I realized my body wasn't betraying me, it was guiding me. The anxiety, the restless nights, the tension in my chest whenever I forced myself into work that didn't feel right, those weren't random symptoms. They were signposts pointing to the truth that I wasn't listening. So let me ask you, how often do you pause and check in with yourself? How often do you notice when something feels off? Actually honor that feeling. Take a moment right now. If you want, pause this video and answer honestly. When was the last time you felt a deep sense of alignment, when your actions match your soul's call? Was it recent, or has it been a long time? You see, the soul doesn't usually scream. It whispers. And in a world filled with notifications, deadlines, and constant noise, it's easy to let those whispers be drowned out. But your biology, as science shows us, won't let you ignore it forever. Here's something practical you can try today. It's simple, but don't underestimate it. For the next 3 days, choose one moment of stillness. It could be during your morning coffee, in the shower, or just before sleep. In that moment, close your eyes, take 3 slow breaths, and ask yourself one question. What am I ignoring? Write down whatever arises, without judgment, without trying to edit. It might not make sense at first, but keep doing it. Patterns will appear, and those patterns often reveal what your soul has been asking for all along. This practice isn't about making a drastic life change overnight. It's about learning to hear again, to give space to the part of you that's been muted. It's about building a bridge between science and spirit, knowing that when your body feels restless, when your mind feels drained, and when your heart feels silent, there is real neurological evidence that you are out of alignment. For me, this small exercise was the beginning of everything. The first time I tried it, the words that came out surprised me. They weren't grand or dramatic. They were simple. You need more creativity. At that time, I was buried in work that was purely analytical, no space for expression. I ignored it for months, thinking it was impractical. But the longer I denied it, the heavier I felt. When I finally listened and made small shifts, journaling, painting, even recording videos like this one, the weight lifted, my energy returned. And the scientific research explained why. Listening to your inner voice reduces stress and restores balance in your nervous system. So if you've been carrying that quiet emptiness, know this. You're not broken, and you're not alone. You're simply being invited to listen more closely. The science confirms it. The body confirms it. And your soul has been patiently waiting for you to turn down the noise long enough to hear it. For months, I ignored the signs that were clearly pointing me toward my deeper purpose. At first, they were subtle. A restless night, a fleeting thought that something wasn't aligned. But over time, those whispers grew louder, manifesting as physical symptoms I could no longer overlook. Insomnia, anxiety, chronic fatigue. I remember lying in bed some nights, staring at the ceiling, feeling the tension in my chest and the heaviness in my mind, thinking I must simply lack discipline. I try to push through it, reasoning that life is supposed to be hard sometimes, that everyone feels drained at moments. But deep down, I knew this wasn't ordinary stress. Something inside me was calling for attention, and my body was responding in its own unmistakable language. It wasn't just mental exhaustion. It wasn't just a matter of being overworked or distracted. My body, my energy, my focus, all were signaling that I was out of alignment with something far greater than daily routines. The irony is, I had spent so much of my life pursuing external measures of success. Grades, career milestones, social validation. All the while ignoring the inner compass that had quietly guided me in moments of clarity and inspiration. I began to notice patterns. Certain activities, even small ones, would leave me energized, light, and fully present, while others drained me completely. Meeting deadlines for work projects felt exhausting, but writing, reflecting, and following moments of curiosity felt effortless, even restorative. Over time, the contrast became undeniable. These experiences weren't random. There were subtle hints that my inner voice was pointing me towards something meaningful, a mission that wasn't immediately obvious in conventional measures of success. One of the most revealing moments came during a routine walk. I had just finished a long day at work, my mind cluttered with emails and unfinished tasks. I felt a tightness in my chest and a low hum of unease that I couldn't shake. Out of habit, I took a few deep breaths and allowed myself to notice what was happening. I asked myself a simple question: what am I resisting? Almost immediately, a thought surfaced. You're resisting your curiosity, your desire to create, your true purpose. I realized that the discomfort I had been feeling for months wasn't punishment, it was guidance. And that's when I started looking deeper into the science behind these experiences. What I discovered was fascinating. Our intuition, our sense of purpose, and even these subtle bodily signals have measurable foundations in neuroscience and psychology. For instance, studies show that the brain's default mode network, the neural circuitry involved when we reflect, daydream, or contemplate, is closely tied to how we process meaning and purpose. When we tune into our inner voice, we're not engaging in abstract mysticism. We're activating cognitive pathways that help us integrate information, make aligned decisions, and maintain mental and emotional balance. Another compelling piece of research comes from the field of interoception, the study of how we sense internal bodily states. Scientists at MIT and Harvard have demonstrated that people who practice awareness of these signals, noticing heart rate changes, gut feelings, or subtle shifts in energy, experience significantly lower stress levels and greater clarity in decision-making. This isn't about magical thinking or spiritual jargon. It's about training the mind-body connection to respond consciously to the signals our own physiology provides. I decided to apply this knowledge to my daily life in a practical way. One simple exercise I began involved pausing 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening, to ask myself a single question: am I aligned right now with what truly matters to me? I didn't need to answer in full sentences or force solutions. I simply observed what my body felt: tension, openness, resistance, ease. I recorded these impressions in a journal, noting recurring patterns. Over the course of a week, small but significant insights emerged. Tasks that had felt obligatory and draining revealed themselves as misaligned with my purpose, while moments of curiosity and creative engagement illuminated areas I had been neglecting. To engage more deeply with this practice, I invite you to try a short interactive exercise. Take a moment right now and place your hand on your heart. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and ask, what part of me have I been ignoring today? Pause and notice the first sensation or thought that arises. You don't need to interpret it or judge it. Just acknowledge it. This simple awareness practice begins to strengthen your connection to your inner guidance, reinforcing both scientific understanding and personal experience. As I integrated these exercises into daily life, I realized something profound. Purpose and intuition are not abstract ideals reserved for a spiritual few. They are measurable, actionable, and accessible to anyone willing to pause, observe, and respond. My insomnia eased, my energy returned, and decisions that once felt overwhelming became clearer. I wasn't chasing a mystical awakening. I was learning to listen and respond intelligently to the signals my body and mind were already sending me. This leads us naturally into the 2 scientific discoveries that reshaped my understanding of purpose. They provide concrete evidence that intuition is real, that listening to the body and mind is not optional, and that following this guidance can transform ordinary daily choices into meaningful steps aligned with one's life mission. These discoveries are practical, actionable, and rooted in research, the kind of knowledge that allows science and spirit to work hand in hand. As I began to pay attention to the subtle nudges of my inner self, I realized that the process wasn't just emotional or mystical. There was real science behind it. In 2023, researchers at Stanford University published a study demonstrating that the default mode network, a complex set of brain regions activated during introspection, self-reflection, and daydreaming, is also engaged when we listen to our intuition. This is the same network associated with creativity, problem-solving, and profound insights. Essentially, paying attention to your inner voice is not only spiritually meaningful, it is neurologically supported. I remember the first time I decided to experiment with this. I started meditating for just 10 minutes a day, a simple practice of sitting in silence, focusing on my breath, and allowing thoughts to come without judgment. At first, it felt awkward. My mind raced, and I kept checking the clock, convinced that 10 minutes would never be enough. But gradually, I noticed something remarkable. Insights about my life began surfacing like whispers, small nudges that felt clearer than the clutter of daily thought. One morning, after a particularly restless night, I sat quietly with a notebook and simply asked myself, what do I need to notice today? The first idea that emerged was subtle, yet undeniable. Your work isn't fulfilling you. Explore creative avenues. At the time, I was entrenched in a routine that felt secure but uninspiring. I wrote the insight down, not knowing exactly what to do with it. Over the next few days, more ideas appeared, patterns forming from these small, consistent reflections. It was as if my brain had been quietly gathering information all along, waiting for me to sit still long enough to notice it. The Stanford research explains why this works. The default mode network connects regions of the brain that process memory, emotion, and abstract thought. When we meditate or engage in reflective practices, we strengthen this network's ability to integrate information in ways that lead to meaningful insights. Intuition is not random. It is the brain synthesizing experiences, knowledge, and emotions to highlight decisions that align with our authentic selves. The beauty of this process is that it's simple, accessible, and entirely practical. You don't need to dedicate hours a day or learn complex rituals. All you need is 10 minutes, a notebook, and willingness to observe without judgment. Here's the approach I used, and I invite you to try it yourself. 1. Set aside 10 minutes each day in a quiet space, free from distractions. Even a small corner of your room works. 2. Close your eyes, focus on your breathing, and notice whatever thoughts or feelings arise. Don't filter or analyze, just observe. 3. Write down the first idea, sensation, or image that comes to mind. This could be a feeling of discomfort, a sudden inspiration, or even a memory that surfaces. 4. Repeat this for 7 consecutive days. At the end of the week, review your notes. Patterns often emerge, revealing insights about priorities, hidden desires, or decisions you've been avoiding. When I followed this method, the results were subtle but powerful. I discovered that the creative energy I had been neglecting was not a luxury. It was a crucial element of my alignment and purpose. The small, consistent practice of listening allowed me to identify actionable steps, such as exploring new projects, adjusting my career focus, and prioritizing activities that truly energized me. Here's a quick interactive moment for you. Pause for a second and think about one area of your life where you've been feeling uneasy or unfulfilled. It could be your work, relationships, or even a daily routine. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask yourself one question. What is my inner voice trying to tell me about this situation? You don't need to answer immediately. Just notice what surfaces. Even small insights are meaningful. Over time, this practice strengthens not only your intuition, but also your emotional resilience. By regularly observing your internal signals, you reduce the stress of indecision and uncertainty. Neuroscience confirms that when we act in alignment with these insights, we experience lower cortisol levels, improved focus, and enhanced creativity. In other words, paying attention to your inner voice is both spiritually fulfilling and biologically advantageous. One of the most striking personal lessons I learned is that listening to the inner voice is not a linear process. Some days the insights are clear. Other days they are vague or even confusing. That's okay. The brain is continually integrating experiences, and the default mode network thrives on consistency rather than intensity. Even small daily practices create cumulative effects, sharpening your ability to notice subtle patterns and respond intelligently. By the end of that first week of dedicated meditation and reflection, I had identified specific steps to begin aligning my life with my authentic self. I started setting aside time for creative work, adjusted routines that drained energy, and made space for self-reflection each morning. These small, practical actions were grounded in both scientific understanding and my own lived experience. The synergy of research and personal experimentation showed me that intuition is real, reliable, and actionable. This is why the inner voice matters so much. It's not an abstract concept or a mystical notion. It is a scientifically validated pathway to clarity, creativity, and purpose. By dedicating even 10 minutes a day to quiet reflection, you give your brain and body the opportunity to guide you toward choices that resonate with your deepest self. There comes a point when the inner voice moves beyond thoughts and reflections and begins to speak through the body itself. The subtle nudges, the small inklings, and the feelings of unease are often signals that something in our lives is out of alignment. Over the years, I learned that these bodily messages were not random. They were the language of the soul, waiting to be noticed. I remember vividly a period when I was caught in a demanding routine. My days were filled with meetings, emails, and responsibilities that seemed important on the surface. But there was a persistent tension in my chest, a tightness that I initially dismissed as stress. At first, I thought I just needed more caffeine, more sleep, or a stronger to-do list. But the discomfort didn't go away. My sleep became restless, my appetite shifted, and even small decisions felt weighted and exhausting. It wasn't just mental fatigue. My body was sending signals, urging me to pay attention. Science has since confirmed what ancient wisdom and personal experience have long suggested. A 2020 study from Harvard Medical School explored the concept of interoception, our ability to perceive internal bodily signals, such as heartbeats, breath, gut sensations, and subtle intuitive feelings. Participants trained in interoceptive awareness, the study found, experienced 25% more clarity in life decisions compared to those who did not. In other words, the more we learn to listen to our bodies, the clearer our decision-making becomes, bridging the gap between instinct and conscious action. I decided to apply this concept in a deliberate way. Each day, I began taking a few moments to scan my body, from head to toe, noticing sensations without judgment. I paid attention to areas of tension, warmth, or discomfort, and I asked myself a single question: what is this telling me? Sometimes it was simple, fatigue signaling a need for rest. Other times it was more subtle, a tightness in my stomach whenever I considered a work task that didn't resonate. Over time, I realized these signals were a guide, pointing me toward choices that aligned with my purpose and away from those that didn't. One memorable instance occurred during a career decision. I was offered a position that seemed impressive on paper, with higher pay and status. Initially, I felt excitement. The logical part of my brain approved. But my body told a different story. My chest felt tight, my stomach churned, and an inexplicable heaviness pressed down. Sitting quietly and reflecting on these sensations, I realized that this role would take me further from the creative work that energized me. By listening to my body rather than only my mind, I was able to decline an opportunity that, though attractive outwardly, would have led to long-term dissatisfaction. The practical exercises for interoception are surprisingly simple and accessible. You don't need specialized equipment or years of training. Here's an approach I used and continue to practice. 1. Pause 3 times daily, morning, midday, and evening, and take 1 to 2 minutes to notice your body state. 2. Scan your body mentally from your head to your toes. Pay attention to areas of tension, warmth, or discomfort. 3. Ask yourself a simple question. What is this sensation telling me about my current choices or mindset? 4. Record your observations in a notebook. Over several days, patterns emerge, revealing which decisions, environments, or habits align with your energy and which do not. As you practice this, you'll likely notice small but significant shifts. Decisions that once felt heavy begin to feel lighter. Your sense of alignment strengthens. You may even find that challenges, once confusing, present themselves more clearly when viewed through the lens of bodily awareness. To engage with this practice right now, try a brief exercise. Place your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and take 3 slow, deliberate breaths. As you breathe, notice any areas of tension, warmth, or subtle movement. Ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me about the choices I've made today? Pause and allow whatever sensations or thoughts arise to surface naturally. There is no wrong answer. Every observation is valuable data. Over time, integrating interoceptive awareness has transformed my daily life. Small adjustments, choosing meetings that truly matter, spending energy on tasks aligned with my purpose, or allowing rest when my body signals fatigue, accumulate into significant changes in clarity, focus, and well-being. The Harvard research confirms what I experienced firsthand. Listening to the body is not optional. It's a measurable way to increase alignment and make decisions with confidence. The insight is simple but profound. The body is never silent. Even when we are busy or distracted, it communicates through subtle signals that indicate whether we are on or off track with our purpose. By learning to notice and respond, we cultivate a dialogue between the inner self and the external world, bridging intuition, biology, and conscious action. This is why paying attention to the body is more than a wellness practice. It is a strategic approach to life. It empowers us to align our daily choices with our deeper purpose, reduce chronic stress, and enhance clarity in every decision. And most importantly, it proves that spiritual intuition is grounded in measurable, actionable science. As I began connecting with my inner guidance and paying attention to the subtle signals of my body, a larger question emerged. What is my life really for? Not in terms of status, career, or external achievements, but in the sense of purpose that gives life meaning and direction. This is what researchers refer to as clarity of purpose, a deep understanding of what one's life is meant to contribute beyond daily routines and societal expectations. In 2022, Yale University conducted a remarkable study involving over 1,200 participants to examine the effects of life purpose on overall health and longevity. The results were striking. Individuals with clear purpose not only reported better mental health, but they also exhibited an increase in life expectancy of up to 7 years. This finding demonstrates that purpose is not merely a philosophical or spiritual concept. It has tangible, measurable effects on the body and mind. Simply put, living in alignment with your soul's mission can literally add years to your life. I can relate personally to these findings. For years, I treated my life as a checklist. Finish tasks, meet obligations, pursue practical goals. On the surface, I was successful, but there was a lingering sense of incompleteness, a quiet dissatisfaction I couldn't ignore. My energy felt fragmented, and even achievements that should have brought satisfaction left me feeling empty. It wasn't until I dedicated time to reflect deeply on my purpose that I began noticing a shift in both my mental and physical well-being. Small, consistent acts aligned with my deeper intentions began to produce measurable changes, improved focus, better sleep, and a greater sense of vitality. Discovering your purpose doesn't have to be abstract or intimidating. One approach I used was a simple journaling exercise that combines reflection with action. 1. Identify core themes. Write down recurring thoughts, desires, or feelings that consistently arise in your life. These often point to what truly matters to you. 2. Notice energy responses. Pay attention to how your body reacts when considering different activities or choices. Do you feel light, energized, and open, or heavy and constrained? Physical responses are often direct indicators of alignment. 3. Define small experiments. Choose 1 or 2 activities this week that resonate with your deeper intentions. These don't have to be dramatic. Small steps create patterns of alignment that build clarity over time. 4. Reflect and adjust. At the end of the week, review your notes and experiences. Patterns will emerge, highlighting areas where you're aligned with your purpose and areas where adjustments are needed. For me, the first experiment was deceptively simple, dedicating a half hour each morning to creative work that I had been postponing for years. Initially, it felt indulgent, even unnecessary. But after a few days, I noticed my energy shifting. Tasks that had felt overwhelming began to feel manageable. My focus improved, and the quiet dissatisfaction I had been carrying for years started to ease. These small, purposeful actions reinforced both the science and the intuition. When you act in alignment with your soul's mission, your brain and body respond positively, creating a feedback loop of clarity and motivation. Here's an interactive moment for you. Take a piece of paper or open a notebook and answer this question honestly. Which activity, relationship, or project makes me feel most alive and engaged? Don't overthink it. Write the first answer that comes to mind. This is the beginning of identifying patterns that reveal your soul's mission. The Yale study further highlights why this practice matters. Participants with clear purpose showed lower stress levels, improved emotional regulation, and stronger resilience in the face of life challenges. Purpose doesn't eliminate obstacles, but transforms how we engage with them. When you understand the why behind your actions, you navigate life with a sense of direction that reduces mental strain and enhances well-being. Personally, embracing my purpose also reshaped how I set boundaries. I started saying no to projects that drained me, even when they seemed appealing externally, and yes to opportunities that nurtured growth and contribution. The clarity of purpose acted as a compass, guiding my decisions and conserving energy for what truly mattered. Over time, this alignment translated into measurable improvements, reduced anxiety, increased creativity, and a tangible sense of fulfillment. To make this actionable, here's a practical exercise you can try today. Set aside 10 minutes in a quiet space. Close your eyes and ask, if I could dedicate 1 hour of my day to something that truly matters to me, what would it be? Notice the first answer that surfaces without judging it. Write it down. Commit to exploring it for the next 3 days, observing how it impacts your energy, focus, and clarity. The integration of science and personal experience makes this approach particularly compelling. Yale's research confirms that purpose is linked to longevity and mental health, while introspective practices allow us to identify and act on that purpose in practical ways. By blending measurable science with personal reflection, you create a roadmap for living a life that is both meaningful and sustainable. Ultimately, understanding and pursuing your soul's mission is less about achieving external accolades and more about cultivating alignment with your deepest values and passions. As you begin noticing patterns, listening to your body, and taking small but intentional steps, clarity emerges. The path forward becomes tangible, actionable, and grounded in both science and lived experience. Purpose is not an abstract ideal. It is a practice, a dialogue between mind, body, and intuition that, when nurtured, enhances every aspect of life, from mental clarity to physical health, from decision-making to the simple joy of waking up with intention each day. By now, you've explored the science of intuition, the signals of the body, and the profound effects of living in alignment with your life purpose. You've seen how neuroscience and research from Stanford, MIT, Harvard, and Yale converge with personal experience to show that listening to your inner voice is not abstract, mystical, or hypothetical. It is real, measurable, and deeply actionable. But knowledge alone doesn't create change. It is an action that insight becomes transformation. And this is where you step in. Over the next 7 days, I want you to apply one of the techniques we've discussed fully and intentionally, and observe how it shifts your clarity, energy, and connection with your purpose. This is not about instant transformation or miraculous results. It's about consistent, focused practice that strengthens your mind-body intuition connection. Here is your challenge. Choose one technique that resonates with you the most and commit to it for 7 days. You have 2 options. 1. Meditate for 10 minutes each day to hear your inner voice. Sit quietly, focus on your breath, and notice the thoughts, feelings, and insights that arise. Record the first ideas or sensations that come to mind without judgment. Pay attention to recurring patterns over the week. 2. Train your interoception. Notice your body before each decision. Scan your body for tension, openness, or subtle cues whenever you face a choice, whether it's minor or significant. Ask yourself, what is my body telling me about this decision? Record your observations and see how your awareness influences your choices. During this week, your focus is simple. Observe, record, and reflect. There is no right or wrong. The key is consistency, and the goal is to cultivate sensitivity to the subtle guidance your mind and body are already providing. I want to share my own experience to illustrate why this works. When I first committed to a daily 10-minute meditation practice, I didn't notice dramatic changes immediately. The first day felt like a failure. My mind was racing, distractions were constant, and I questioned whether the practice had any value. But I persisted. By day 3, small insights began surfacing. A sense of urgency around a creative project I had been postponing, a feeling that a particular relationship required more conscious attention, subtle hints about my daily priorities. By day 7, patterns had emerged. I could clearly see which areas of my life were aligned with my purpose and which needed adjustment. These small shifts translated into concrete actions, reprioritizing tasks, setting boundaries, and investing energy in what truly mattered. Similarly, when I trained interoception, the results were subtle but powerful. By pausing before each decision and observing bodily sensations, I became aware of which choices felt expansive versus constrictive. For example, I noticed a tightening in my chest whenever I considered overcommitting to a project that wasn't aligned with my goals. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was stress or fatigue. But over time, these signals became clearer and more reliable. Listening to my body prevented burnout, improved focus, and allowed me to make decisions that felt not only rational, but deeply aligned with my inner guidance. Here's an interactive element for you right now. Pause the video and write a quick note in the comments. Answer this question honestly. What signal do you notice most when your soul is trying to communicate? Is it restless sleep, anxiety, bursts of inspiration, or a physical sensation like tension or energy in the chest? Notice what arises immediately. There are no wrong answers. Your observations are data. Sharing in the comments also creates accountability and allows others to recognize patterns they may have overlooked. As you engage with this challenge, keep a simple journal. Each day, record the technique you practiced, the insights or sensations you observed, any shifts in mood, energy, or clarity. At the end of the week, review your notes. Patterns often emerge that are not obvious in the moment, but become clear through reflection. Perhaps certain decisions that seem trivial reveal themselves as deeply misaligned, or certain activities that felt effortless are pointing to your hidden strengths. This is the practical, science-backed way of listening to your soul, observing, reflecting, and acting in alignment. A key point I want to emphasize is the power of small, consistent actions. Transformation rarely occurs in a single moment of insight. It emerges gradually as the brain and body adjust to the new patterns you're creating. Science confirms this. Repeated practice strengthens neural pathways, improves interoceptive awareness, and enhances the ability to integrate intuition into decision-making. In essence, each day you dedicate to this challenge reinforces your inner guidance system, making it more reliable over time. Let's talk about mindset during this process. Be curious, not critical. You may notice resistance, impatience, or even doubt. That's normal. The point is not perfection, but awareness. Every observation, even if seemingly small or inconsequential, provides feedback for your growth. For example, one day you might meditate and notice nothing noteworthy. That is still valuable. It shows the baseline state of your awareness and offers insight into how consistent practice shifts perception over time. By the end of the 7 days, I want you to share your experience in the comments using the hashtag #soulcalling. This creates a sense of community and shared accountability. When you see others reflecting on their experiences, it reinforces your own practice and validates the small but meaningful changes that are taking place. I also encourage a final reflection at the end of each day. Take 2 minutes before sleep to ask yourself, what subtle signal did I notice today? How did I respond? Writing down this reflection integrates the experience into your memory and heightens awareness for the following day. Over time, this simple habit builds a feedback loop between your mind, body, and intuition, exactly what the scientific research supports. Remember, the soul's call is not dramatic. It does not shout or demand. It whispers in small nudges, subtle feelings, and fleeting insights. The challenge is not to force answers, but to cultivate the sensitivity to hear these whispers clearly. This is what meditation, interoception, and reflective journaling achieve. They are tools grounded in both neuroscience and personal experience that allow us to act with clarity, purpose, and alignment. To close this chapter, I want to leave you with a guiding thought. Your soul is always speaking, and your task is to listen. Over the next 7 days, commit to this listening practice with curiosity and patience. Observe the insights, honor the signals, and share your journey with others. Whether it's a subtle shift in mood, a spark of creativity, or clarity on a decision, each moment of awareness is proof that you are engaging with your inner guidance. So, take the first step today. Choose one technique. Dedicate time each day. Observe what emerges and record your insights. At the end of the week, comment with hashtag #soulcalling and share what you discovered. Reflect on how your energy, clarity, and sense of purpose may have shifted. This is the bridge between science, spirituality, and everyday life. Actionable, measurable, and profoundly transformative. The call of the soul is gentle, consistent, and persistent. It does not demand, it invites. The question remains, are you listening?